The feed additive industry has been facing several challenges with COVID-19 and the Ukraine-Russia conflict, more recently disrupting supply chains into Asia. In this podcast, the Asian Feed magazine editor, Zahara Imtiaz, talks to Adisseo Regional Supply Chain Manager for Asia Pacific, Rudy Yeo, on the status of the feed additive market and the challenges that lay ahead for the industry.
Hi, Rudy. Thank you for joining us in this podcast.
Hi, Zara. Nice to meet you.
Tim, before we start, could you give our listeners a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Sure. My name is Rudy. So I'm the Regional Supply Chain Manager for Adisseo Asia Pacific and ISC. So we take care of the whole supply chain for the animal feed products that Adisseo is offering.
Thank you. So you're the perfect person to talk to about supply disruptions in the feed additive side. We are seeing a lot of disruptions in the feed additive supply chain to Asia. Can you explain the reasons for this to our listeners here?
Sure. Okay. Maybe in order to understand more about the supply chain disruptions that we are facing currently, maybe we have to bring ourselves back to year 2017. That was even before COVID. So what happened during then was a lot of ocean liners or carriers, as we call them. They are facing difficulty in profitability. So if we recall, in 2017, there was a high-profile bankruptcy of a shipping company called Hanjin Shipping. All right, so that was the beginning of disruptions in supply chain globally. Thereafter, in 2018, while carriers are still trying to consolidate, another key event happened, and we call it the U.S. and China trade war. So that puts a huge imbalance of shipping containers around the world, because the trade war between US being one of the main consumer markets and China being the biggest manufacturing market. So it creates a lot of imbalance in equipment, and then that was in lasting through 2019. And then 2020, 2019 to 2020, we got hit by COVID. So I shall not elaborate more, because we all know the impacts of COVID until 2022. And then finally, more recently, we have this Russia-Ukraine conflict. And then that in turn placed more pressure on the already very stretched supply chain globally. Yeah. So all these are the reasons why the current impact that we see, the current disruption level that we see in supply chain.
So this combination of all these factors has just compounded the problem right now.
Yes, exactly. Because I think the world or the supply chain, in all parts of the world, we do not have enough time to recover from one event to the other. So we are forced to adapt. We are forced to that's why prices are very high. We have a lot of surcharges, and the reliability of vessels are dropping at a very fast rate. Yeah.
Okay. Well, given these factors, I mean, you said that we did not have time to recover. So that means we will probably have more issues in the future. Would you think these disruptions and volatility is temporary, or do you think it is a new norm to be expected?
I understand. That is a very good question, because that is the million-dollar questions that all supply chain professionals are trying to predict. So from my personal opinion, my view is that this is going to be a new norm. Of course, in the years to come, when the market returns to normal, hopefully, there will be improvement to the current situation. But I would think that it would be unrealistic to have a timeline to say that, how long we need to get back to pre-2017. Because, even if we recover from COVID, even if the war is ended or whatever reasons, the key issue here is still the profitability of the ocean carriers. So I don't think they will want to return to pre-2017 where all of them were making losses. So they have found the profiting formula now. So I'm sure that they will want to keep this even pre-COVID or
That's a good point that you make. I mean, once you start making money, you don't want to go back. And
exactly.
so in that kind of scenario, what kind of advice do you have to your customers to adapt to this new situation?
Sure. In Adisseo, we work very closely with our customers. So what are the advices we can give them is, of course, first, we need to review all the supply chain routings that we are currently using. All right. So in the past where, we have globalization, it is very cheap to transport things around. We might want to do a regional stock or even global inventories. But currently, we are looking more at the local level. We are trying to decentralize and make it localized so that we do not have to be exposed to the risk of transportation. So in that sense, it means stocking up more at the local inventories. And also that is the part of the customers. On the part of the suppliers like Adisseo ourselves, we keep reviewing our supply routings as well to see. For example, now the challenge is more on ocean freight. Definitely, for animal feed, we will not go to air freight. But what we can think about is there are some countries that are very well connected by either rail or by road transportation, the land transportation. So if we could de-risk, we split up and we de-risk the putting 100% of our shipments in ocean freight. I think that's also a good idea to mitigate the impact of all this increase in costs and high shipping costs and things like that.
That's true. But do you think with the higher energy prices, like fuel prices right now, this would increase your cost of logistics?
Definitely. In fact, we already seen, I think, a 5 to 15% increase in all sorts of costs. For example, in transportation costs, in even manpower costs, because the cost of living is higher and things like that. We do see this increase in cost, but what we can do to mitigate all this is really to cut off the slack in our supply chain, cut off the unnecessary touch point, because as I've mentioned, in the past, we used to have a lot of inefficiencies, but currently we need to think about, basically things like direct shipments. So for example, if we have something coming from Europe to, let's say, Thailand for our customers. So in the past, Europe might send it to a consolidation point somewhere in Europe, and then they will send it to a regional hub, and then from the hub we will send it to Thailand. So now we need to review the supply chain. We need to think about how can we get it from the manufacturing to the customer directly to reduce the footprint. Yeah.
So this has literally forced you all to become more efficient as a supplier. And
Yes, exactly.
I guess it's also better for the customer since they would get their product faster.
Yes, you will get the product faster in that sense. However, of course, there are a lot of dynamics behind that we need to cater to. For example, sometimes some countries will have free trade agreements, some has certifications processes. So all these will need to be ironed out. So of course, the broad strategy is to go direct as much as possible, and that's beneficial for everybody. But there is definitely some reasons why we are doing it the not so direct method. So so we need to address all those concerns. Yes.
Yes. And Rudy, you spoke about COVID and how that kind of disrupted the market. But we also saw after that a lot of interest in meat hygiene and meat quality. Did you see this have a positive impact on the feed additive market itself? Are people buying more?
Yes, I think when we have consumers that prefer to have a higher quality meat, how it actually impacts the animal feed market is that the farmers are willing to pay more. They're willing to pay more for better quality animal feed, because only by feeding the animals with better quality food, then you can have better quality meat, right? So yes, it have a slight boost to the market, but I think this boost is also on the contrary, you have also people that are getting maybe a bit more health conscious. They want to go for lesser meat or even plant-based meat, right? So all those actually it has a counter impact on all the progressions that we have done on the better quality meat. So I think in terms of the market wise, the trend is that we are still growing, okay, because the world population is growing, so there's a growing demand for meat. But due to all these reasons that I've just shared, I think we are growing at a slower pace than we expect to be. Yeah.
Okay, but do you think like risks like, for example, climate change, increasing mycotoxins prevalence in Asia and incidents like that, do you think that would help increase market share for your feed safety, feed additives?
I think in order to answer that, we are more I think everywhere in this world, not even animal feed, we are talking about sustainability, right? So I think this question is more related to sustainability. And in terms of sustainability, carbon footprint is always one of the key KPIs. So what I do expect for the animal feed industry relating to this is that we will definitely improve in this area, but as compared to some other industry, the more high-tech industries, I think we are still a bit of way behind.
Sure. And also in that sense, we see Adisseo and similar feed additive companies invest a lot in new technologies, new kinds of alternative proteins. How do you see this impact the feed additive market in the coming future? Is Asia ready to accept these new proteins?
Yeah, I believe Adisseo, we have partnered with quite a few companies to explore into these new markets. I would say that the receptive level generally is quite well received. However, this I would term it as something that would be the future, maybe 3 to 5 years in the shorter to mid term, sorry. Because these are all new technologies, and I think currently we don't see customers or we don't see feed millers switching 100% to such technologies. So now I believe it's more on a R&D, research and development phase. So we are trying, of course, to stay ahead of the market. And yeah, so I don't think it will have a huge impact currently, but in the next future 3 to 5 years, maybe we will see something new and very innovative in the market. Yes.
Great. Do you think the current high prices of proteins like soybean meal and things like that would motivate people to look into these new kinds of products and technologies more?
Personally, as I shared, this will differ from in all this. It's actually driven by the factor that Ukraine is unable to export any of these things, and Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of such what we call raw materials for the animal feed, right? So some purchasers, like what you have mentioned, they might be keen to explore new technologies in order to counter this high commodity price. But there are also a great deal of other purchasers that are saying they would rather adopt a wait and see attitude, and then wait for maybe the war to end. And because before this Russia-Ukraine conflict, I think there was no issue at all on prices of corn, for example, especially in Asia.
True, that's right. And finally, Rudy, how is the investment in traditional feed additives? Are we do we still have that ongoing, and will customers or consumers be ready to pay for those in this kind of environment?
What I would think is the feed millers, they will be, of course, everybody in fact will be more prudent in cost and investment at the current global climate. However, I do feel if this question is being directed on the conventional method versus the new technologies that we are expecting, there are still a great deal of feed millers in Asia that would rather opt for the conventional method because it's proven. There is a lot of data out there. There's independent data for the nutritionists to be doing their study. So I believe most of them, they will still fall back onto a conventional method. So as I mentioned, the new technologies, I think is more for the future. Maybe in the near future, the catalyst is that, it's being brought forward. The whole world is being pushed to improve because of COVID and all the other reasons surrounding. So but I would still feel at the current moment, people will still opt for something more conventional. But in terms of very risky or very high investment, they might be a bit more prudent. Yeah, but it's not impossible.
Okay, thank you so much, Rudy. And all in all, what you're saying is this is not the time to take a risk for many people.
Yes, exactly.
So there you have it. It is better to be prepared for the long haul with the right strategies at hand, especially when it comes to managing your supply chain. Thank you for listening to us at Asian Agribiz podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcast to keep up to date on the latest happenings in the animal protein industry in Asia.